Enough of focusing and linking. Now I have balancing the contrasting points. Sumit back again, coming up with a new set of discourse markers that balance the contrasting points, the two differing facts or opinions on the same context. Let's see how these markers help you express the best way. Friends, focusing and linking. This is what I had talked about in my previous video on discourse markers, the series of which I had promised you to carry ahead with. And to have a little bit of revision on what we did in the last video, it was, as far as for, regarding, as regards, and with reference to as well. Friends, have you ever wondered about the difference between contrast and contradict? Usually people take it to be one and the same thing, but they are different. And to bring this point home, I have brought you something. I've got this folder. Which color is this? Black in color. I love this. It can carry as many files, as many papers as I want. And I got this chalk as well. See, but this black folder runs the risk of getting white, because this black color is in contrast with this light color. It could be violet, light violet, or light blue, or even white. So if I write SUMIT, that with this black folder. Why? Because it gets dirty too often, too easily, and too frequently. Reminds me of the blackboard also. Blackboard is not in contradiction with the white chalk. It is in contrast with the white chalk, which is why it was preferred previously to use black boards. Of course, these days you have green boards, but you have to find some contrast to it. Black and white. You must have heard of people going for choices as to what to wear. Black contrasting well with white, light blue contrasting well with dark blue. You could have as many combinations, but contrast always works. Isn't that so? But why have I raised this issue of contrast? Well, this is exactly what my new set of discourse markers are about. Remember, the contrasting points do not necessarily have to contradict each other. Day does not contradict night. Day contrasts night. In fact, at a higher level, it complements night. Without night, day loses all of its importance. Without sadness, happiness loses all its significance, all its understanding. So happiness contrasts sadness, but happiness is not a contradiction of sadness. So how to balance between these two points, these two contrasting ideas, and not the contradicting ideas, remember. So I am going to take both of them step by step, but I'll start with how to balance the contrasting ideas. So my discourse marker number 1 for balancing the contrasting points is on the one hand, on the other hand. Hriday meets Samir. These are two marketing executives, Hriday, Samir. Hriday has just joined in a new job and he is getting a handsome salary. Well, Samir is in still search of some job which can suit his needs, but Hriday is happy. So they come across each other. As I said, communication between two friends, Hriday and Samir. So they come across each other at a mall, let's say at Big Bazaar. So Samir asks Hriday, hey, hello Hriday, so I heard you got a new job and you must be happy with it. Well, Hriday says, well, yes, but the job is little bit boring actually. Fine, I'm paid handsomely, I'm getting a good salary, getting my fat amount to meet my ends together. Although fine, the job is little boring. Well, Samir says to Hriday, ki Hriday, on the one hand you are saying the job is boring, and on the other hand you are being happy, you are being handsomely paid, you are getting a good salary. So on the one hand you say the job is boring, but on the other hand you are saying that you are happy with it because you are getting a good salary. Well, Hriday says, yeah, that's the way how the things are. Now, I ask you, friends, can these two things be contrary? Like the job is boring, but you are happy. This is not contrary actually, these are contrasting things. Both can go together. Like the job may be boring. There are people in this world who find their job, their profession boring, but they still hold fast. They don't feel like quitting it because of the lure, because of the temptation of the good salary. So they are happy with it. They are happy insofar as getting a good salary. So the job is boring, yet वो वेल पेड भी हो सकता है, उससे अच्छी सैलरी मिल सकती है आपको, लेकिन फिर भी आप उसे बोरिंग पा सकते हो. देयर आर मेनी पीपल अराउंड द वर्ल्ड हु persist with the same job despite finding it boring because they are handsomely paid. Do you understand what I mean here?
Well, it seems you haven't yet got that. Well, I'll explain it.
On the one hand, on the other hand, balancing contrasting points. They can go together. The job may be boring, but yet
Still scratching your heads in disgust. I guess you need another example for that. So it's time for another example.
I am the investment manager and I've got a client. I am going to coax him, convince him to invest and at the same time reduce the costs also. Remember, these are the lockdown times and the times to come are not foreboded, are not actually predicted to be very good from economical perspective.
Well, friends, can't we cut down on our expenses, save some little bit of money to invest for future? These two things can go together, isn't it?
I am the investment manager, advisor. So I advise my client. This is the conversation going between me, the investment advisor, and the client. So he is Mr. Advani. So Mr. Advani, I feel you must cut down on the costs because the salary is not being given by your firm to you, and you're going to cut down, reduce your costs. But at the same time, a bit of investment also will help you, right? A bit of investment will help you. Invest somewhere, which I advise you, so that it could give you some dividends also in return, some matured amount. And then when I tell this to my client, the client does not understand me and he says, sir, Mr. Sumit, you just told me that I must reduce my costs. So on the one hand, you are asking me to reduce the costs. On the one hand, you are asking me to reduce the costs. And on the other hand, you are asking me to invest somewhere. Do you think they can go well together? Well, he takes them to be contrary things. He mistakes my advice. He misunderstands me. I am not being contrary in my two advices. The two advices are complementary, but he doesn't understand it. He does not understand it in the right spirit. That's why he uses on the one hand, on the other.
Well, so let me elaborate more upon it. Well, On the one hand, on the other hand, like I said, used for giving two different opinions about something, two differing views, two different sides of the same thing. On the one hand, of course, the car is very useful. On the one hand, of course, the car is very useful. On the other hand, they cause a huge amount of pollution. Well, don't you think, friends, these are two diametrically opposite ways of looking at the same thing? One is the advantage, although the other is the disadvantage of a car. Isn't that so? Now, like I said, it's used to express opposing views of the same argument. I have got another example here in the sequence of examples, so that I wish to make it absolutely clear to you, no doubts remaining. On the one hand, working from home saves time, and it is not necessary to travel for work. Well, on the other hand, it could become very lonely. Well, these are two different sides of the same thing. Working at home, working from home. On the one hand, it saves time and it is not necessary to travel for work. Well, on the other hand, it could become very lonely. Like I said, you have to be very careful that one should be an advantage and the other should be a disadvantage. On the one hand, a third example and the next example. On the one hand, that movie had fantastic special effects. On the one hand, that movie had fantastic special effects. Well, on the other hand, it was a little bit too long. Now let's go for some rules on the other hand. And when we talk of some rules, you have to be very careful that on the one hand, once you use this phrase, this discourse marker called on the one hand, it has to be followed by a comma. It has to be followed by a comma, and it has to be paired up with on the other hand inevitably, or else the piece of communication that you have taken up will have a loose end for the listener, and the listener will be waiting. He or she will continue waiting for the other part of the speech as well. On the other hand, in the other side of the opinion on the same subject. I hope you have got the hang of this exclusive isolated use of on the other hand. But you have to remember that on the other hand is not used to give an additional information. And remember, this is when I am talking of in conjunction with on the one hand. When you are using on the one hand along with on the other hand, you have to remember that on the other hand is never used to give any additional information. Remember that. It should be always an opposite view, a differing view. It could be a disadvantage, let's say. So both sides of the argument should not be advantages. One should be a disadvantage. I would demonstrate this and bring home my point with the help of a wrong usage of these two discourse markers used in conjunction. On the one hand, eating ice cream is so appetizing to our taste buds. Remember, you could easily see it's an advantage of eating ice cream. On the one hand, eating ice cream is so appetizing to our taste buds. On the other hand, it also gives us a relief from the heat, from the summer heat, from the torrid heat. Well, can't you see? Both are the favorable aspects of eating ice cream. There is no unfavorable or non-favorable part to it. So it is a wrong usage. Like I said, what's wrong here? Easily it can be seen. It seems odd because both sentences bring out the advantages of eating ice cream. So there should be a contrasting view or side or opinion on the same subject under our discussion. Let's correct this usage. Let's same very context in the right way. On the one hand, eating ice cream is so appetizing to our taste buds. Well, the first sentence remains the same. And look at the other side. On the other hand, it creates bad cholesterol and fat in our body. You can easily detect these two differing views on the same subject. It looks nice, doesn't it? Contrasting views on the same subject.
हिंदी में इसको हम यूज़ करते हैं इस तरह से कि जहाँ एक और आप ऐसा कह रहे हैं वहीं दूसरी ओर आप ऐसा कह रहे हैं, जहाँ एक और वहीं दूसरी ओर. So they are going together वहीं at the same time. But I am not into this at the same time discourse marker. I am into on the one hand, on the other hand.
But
okay.
Something very interesting I brought up on my up my sleeve is it's sometimes okay to use on the other hand all alone, all by itself, and I have beautiful examples to elaborate my point. I mean, sometimes you don't need to even use on the one hand, just on the other hand. Let's see. Of course, this on the other hand must have a context set before it. Be very careful. You will get to see by way of some examples. Example is always better than precept. So let's see here. Example number 1. And remember, this happens when you have a sudden change of mind. In the context, when your mind happens to get across or catch a sudden thought which is contrary, in fact contrasting to the previous thought. This is the context. We could buy our son an Apple iPad on this Diwali. Well, this is a costly gift that the father or the mother or the parents are planning to buy for their son. We could buy our son Rishabh or whoever he is, an Apple iPad on this Diwali. Oh, wait, well, on the other hand, that might be very expensive. So the parent drops the idea perhaps on the second thought, and this is a sudden change of mind. Well, I have another example where I will bring a contrast to you. Let's see here. The context is, my husband likes classical music. This is the wife talking about her husband. My husband likes classical music. I, on the other hand, like all kinds. On the other hand, I like all kinds. Now, example number 3, again a sudden change of mind. This is a wonderful example. See, let's go to the highway restaurant. We could grab a quick dinner there. Oh no, wait. On the other hand, the road may be blocked due to construction in progress. And the speaker suddenly remembers that there is some construction going on, and he or she changes his or her mind. He says, oh no, wait, on the other hand, the road may be blocked. So let's drop this idea, the previous idea of grabbing a quick dinner on the highway restaurant. Maybe we'll have to be happy with a homemade dinner. Let's think of a 2-minute Maggi noodles.
Oh, well, I like playing badminton, and I like to watch badminton also on television. I like badminton. This is my favorite most sport. You know what? By the way, my wife likes to watch cricket. Of course, not play cricket, but she likes to watch cricket. She's not an ardent fan of badminton. Well, I like to play badminton, to watch badminton, while my wife likes to watch cricket on television. Why have I used this? The discourse marker while is what I wanted to bring to the fore through this medium. And this is the next very marker which I have taken up, while or whereas. Well, by the way, the children of the past times used to go for outdoor games. They used to go out to play, while the children of today, while today's children love to play indoors. Video games, PlayStations, Play Store, video game I'm talking. Well, I feel like confiding one more thing in you. My father always insists on going to mountain sides. He likes mountains, while my mother prefers seasides. Whereas also, my father prefers mountains. Even I do prefer mountains, but whereas my mother prefers seasides. Whereas. You know what, friends? I just love the salty oncoming rush of sea waves, the salty waters, the froth and the foam that comes along. I still remember that trip to Goa, which I went with my family 2 years ago. I just love the seasides. But whereas my wife prefers the mountains, how can there be an agreement? We often end up fighting. I love the seaside, whereas my wife prefers mountains. Well, through these examples, I just wanted to bring home the point that these two viewpoints, like me wanting for seaside and my wife wanting for the mountains, or my father preferring mountains and me preferring seasides, any which way, two different worldviews or viewpoints, two different vantage points of two different persons. You had better use whereas to connect these two, to balance these two contrasting points. Mind you, these are not contradicting points. We are not in contradiction. These are contrasting points. You must have noted, because in those days where I learned this use of while and whereas, I always found that while and whereas is used in the middle of these two sentences or the sentence clauses. In the middle, like I prefer mountains, like I prefer music for recreation, while my friend prefers playing the playground. He prefers the playground, I prefer the studio, the playlist on my mobile. The while or whereas, whichever connector or the linker or this discourse marker we decide to use, is used in the middle of these 2 points, right? These 2 viewpoints. But remember, a very interesting scenario is created when we use it at the beginning of the sentence also, and I'll give you a classic example. The situation, let's assume a debate podium. A debate is going on and one of the contenders, one of the opinion holders, one of the contestants comes onto the mic. He stands over there, looks at his opponents and he says, while I agree with most of what you said, while I agree with your view, still I would like to differ a little. While I agree with you on most of the part that you have said, still, changing the stance here, still I choose to differ a little, and let me express on what I differ on. You saw the sentence starts with while I agree. So the other would be taken into your coercion. He would be happy. Yeah, this person is agreeing, but he should have taken note of the word which I used in the very beginning, while I agree. That means there is still more to come in the sentence, in the discourse. Because while I agree, जहाँ एक और मैं एग्री करता हूँ, बहुत कुछ जो आपने बोला उससे एग्री करता हूँ, स्टिल मैं थोड़ा सा डिफर करना चाहूँगा. So the sentence has started with while, and you could use it in as many situations and scenarios as you come across in your life. There can be as many as you want them to be. I'll talk of let's say geography, 2 different geographies which are different. They are in contrast to each other. See how. Let's say the western part of our country, the northwestern part, which comprises Rajasthan, which comprises much of Rajasthan, Gujarat, and on the eastern part of India we have Assam and the seven sister states, Bengal, Odisha. That part is far richer in water than the western part of India. So we can use these two differing things, different points in a single sentence using while, and I choose to use while in the beginning of the sentence. While the sentence goes as this: while the western part of our country does not have much water, it has a bit of scarcity of water. While the western part of our country has scarcity of water, comma, the eastern part is so rich in water. While this is so scarce in water, comma, that is so rich in water. Well, friends, let me introduce you to two of my very good friends, Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse. I caught them conversing with each other and it was a curious one, so I decided to overhear that communication. It was the Mickey Mouse who initiated the dialogue, and he says, Hey Donald, don't you feel bored in water, always waddling away? Don't you get fed up of water? Well, come on to my land. I'll treat you with good adventures. To this, Donald Duck responded this way: Mickey, you don't try to be over smart. Well, on the contrary, I enjoy being in water. That is my territory, my domain. It is my territory. Are you sure that you don't get annoyed? Like I said, Mickey, on the contrary to what you say, on the contrary, I actually enjoy water. Well, that was a little piece of curious dialogue between this Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, and Donald Duck had chosen to use on the contrary. Well, this was what I was talking about in the beginning of this video somewhere, that on the contrary is different from on the other. Donald Duck was saying something exactly contrary. She didn't at all agree with Mickey. She said, on the contrary, I enjoy it. Well, and last but not least, a wonderful example I just thought of with the use of on the contrary. Well, this is a dictionary and I've got a dinosaur over here. Do you see this dinosaur? Yeah. Well, you must have been noticing this thick tail. Well, it could have been a disturbance for him. Probably one might wonder. हो सकता है ऐसा लगे कि ये इतनी भारी टेल को उठा के ले कैसे जाता है. How does he manage to carry such a heavy tail? Good question. But contrary wise, on the contrary, this heavy tail actually helps dinosaur to balance his huge weight. This very heavy mammoth tail actually, on the contrary, helps him rather than making it difficult for him. Maybe wondering it is difficult for him to carry this tail, but no, on the contrary, it actually helps him. You get my point, I suppose. On the contrary is just the opposite of what you may be thinking. and that is used in the middle of the sentence, and it can be used in the beginning as well, putting the previous sentence into perspective. Like, on the contrary, I'm enjoying. Like, you may be sitting long in a class and the onlooker or the watcher may think that you are getting bored. Like, he may be telling you, someone may be telling you, are you getting bored? Because it's been long you sat here and watching the show. Are you getting bored? And as for me, when I talk about myself, I respond, no, I'm not getting bored. On the contrary, I am enjoying it. Just the contrary of what you may be thinking. Our family is busy packing things. They have to shift the house. They are on rent, so they have to shift the house and they are busy packing things. It is a couple, the husband and wife, and they have a child. Now the situation is this. The child is running here and there, poking into the affairs of their parents, and he is not allowing them to pack things orderly. So the father finally gets annoyed. He loses his patience and shouts at the child, stop all this, child. Stop all this, Rahul. You are not helping us in any manner. On the contrary, you are disturbing us. You are annoying us. On the contrary, you are disturbing us. Well, see, this expectation of the father that the child should help him in some way or the other, he could have packed his own school books. Well, but then his expectations were broken, and exactly the opposite happens here. The child behaves contrary wise. So that's why the father uses on the contrary, you are actually disturbing us. Well, on the contrary is different from on the other hand. Remember this. Well, that's all for now from my desk at present, and I'll be coming up with another set of discourse markers in the next video very soon. Meanwhile, you go on practicing and try to frame some sentences using the markers that we used in this video and post them in the comments section down. That will motivate me and encourage me to come up with more videos with more zeal and enthusiasm. Keep waiting for my next in line, what I am going to come up with in the series of discourse markers. Thank you. It's a pleasure being with you.